Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Picard. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, a.k.a. Caliban, and ass deep in Romulans is not where you want to be. Sitting in tonight, again, in place of my usual co-host, Ella Pearson, is my co-host on the Just Enough Trope podcast. She's also the host of the Sailor Noob podcast, and she's a frequent guest on Enterprising Individuals and Discoverage. It's Mika and Hana. Mika, welcome back to Discoverage.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you back here again this week as Ella is away. And I want to talk to you, but I want to get our guest in here right away, so we'll just bring him right in. He's also joining us on the show tonight. He's a New York Times bestselling author who has written over a dozen historical and fantasy books for young readers. He's also the author of The Assassination Game, a Starfleet Academy YA novel set in the Kelvin universe. And his latest book, Allies, tells the story of the D-Day invasion from the perspective of the young soldiers and civilians involved. It's Alan Gratz. Alan, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here, and I don't think that we have talked since Picard has started airing. What have you thought about the show so far?
I really like it. I'm always glad to see Picard back on screen. I thought the first couple of episodes were a little slow, but things have picked up a lot lately. I really loved the episode where they went in costume. It felt a little kind of a little holodeck. You know, I liked Patrick Stewart with the eye patch. But tonight, of course, was total fan service for a TNG fan like me. So I'm having a good time with the show.
Absolutely. It's definitely got us to a point where, like you said, the action was kind of ramping up. Then we had kind of a lot of action. And this episode sort of gives us both. We kind of take a break a little bit, but also there's still a lot of action happening.
Yeah, they had a little bit of stuff going back on the Borg cube and a little bit of stuff on the ship, which I'm sure we'll talk about on Rios' ship. But it was nice to have that time away with the TNG characters, and they really gave, I thought, Troy and Riker a lot of time to shine.
Yeah, and we will definitely talk about that as we go. Mika, I wanted to talk with you or commiserate with you specifically about the death of our dream of going to Emerald City Comic-Con this year.
Yes, the wound is still fresh.
The wound is still bleeding.
Yes, yeah. We were really looking forward to going to Emerald City Comic-Con again this year. We haven't gone since 2016, but with the coronavirus being at an epicenter in Seattle, we decided being around about 100,000 nerds was probably not the best way to go.
I don't think it's 100,000. I think that that'd be a really big con. But yeah, it would definitely be at least 10,000 or so. And it's not like I feel like we're going to go and get, COVID-19 or something like that. It's just at a time like this when half the vendors and the artists and the companies involved have kind of pulled out. It just seems like, why go concentrate with a bunch of other people in a city that has a literal outbreak happening? It just seems like the prudent thing to do.
Yeah. And also, if everybody's canceling, how much fun is it going to be to actually be at the con?
Yeah, right now it sounds...
They haven't canceled the convention itself officially?
No, and I don't think they ever will. I know that's their bread and butter. I understand that that's how it works, but there's been a lot of... DC Comics itself has pulled out. Nobody that represents DC is going to be there, and so it sounds like it's going to be a bunch of nerds, in a half-empty convention center dressed up as Deadpool, just kind of staring at each other.
Which is the way that the Comic-Cons began. So in a way, it'll be going back to...
We're starting over. Alan, I know that you travel quite a bit to schools across the country to talk about your work and the subjects that your work covers. Have your travel plans been affected by the coronavirus concerns?
Not yet, but I have had a couple of things that are coming up where they've let me know they're still looking at it. I have a middle grade festival in Chicago next month, and the organizer just recently said we're trying to figure out what we're doing. The publishing world has really been hit by this. The London Book Fair and the Bologna Book Fair, which are two really big international trade shows where American domestic books are taken to the international market. The London just got canceled, and I think the Bologna is already canceled because that's Italy. Obviously, that was a big or a quick one. And of course, most of our books are printed in China. So we're all of us are going to start seeing delays in books on shelves as these cities where Chinese people are not allowed to leave their homes. They can't go to work, and so those books aren't being made. And then there's also the question of who's going to pick them up and bring them back to us, even when they start printing them, because everybody's afraid to even to set foot in China. So I had some travel lined. So I had somebody ask me to come do a Hong Kong Book Festival, in fact, and I wasn't able to do it because of other scheduling things. And now I'm sure it wouldn't even have happened had I been able to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's affecting a lot of people in a lot of industries. And this is sort of, just for the Just Enough Trope podcast, this is kind of, con season ramping up for us. And even as we look to later dates in the summer and in the fall, we're kind of questioning whether those are going to come off at all. So, yeah, a lot of scrambling going on.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, it's the people who are being affected and who are dying from this. That's the real concern. I mean, all of the rest of it is
right.
I mean, I know that, and all the rest of it is inconvenience for us, obviously. But it's a real serious deal. And so if it means a year of missing cons and books not coming out and that sort of thing, like that's cool. It's gonna change some of my travel plans for fun too this year. I think. And that's unfortunate, but it's, if it's got to happen, it's got to happen.
Yeah, and it's important that everybody stays healthy and thinks twice before they take risks. Speaking about publishing, the last time that we spoke, we were talking about the impending release of Allies, and I was asking you if you felt like you were picking up momentum in your career and people were starting to be aware of you and like where you thought you were. And you said to me that the real test was if your book was in Target, if it sold at Target stores, then you're in. People are going to pay attention.
Did you see my tweet?
Yeah. Well, just the other day, I was at Target stocking up on shotgun shells and hand sanitizer. And sure enough, I saw Refugee by Alan Gratz on the stands next to John Green and Jenny Han et al.
Yeah. There it is. So I'm official. I made it into Target.
Yeah.
I guess the next big hurdle is Costco, I guess. But I'll take Target for sure.
Costco's great because they got to buy a case of them, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you have to buy the collected works of Alan Gratz if you buy them at Costco. No, to be at Target is a big deal because, honestly, there are a lot of communities in the United States that don't have bookstores, and they buy their books at grocery stores and Target and Costco. And even communities that do have proper bookstores, a lot of people just do their book buying in other places. They don't even go into bookstores. As much as that kills me to say it, so the exposure that a book gets in a place like that is incredible. So yeah, I made it. I finally made it.
You did it. Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thanks for talking to whoever you know at Target. I appreciate that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I did what I could. Well, congratulations, and it's great to have you back on the show. And we have just seen the 7th episode of Star Trek Picard. It's an episode called Nepenthe, and we're here to talk all about it. But first, as always, a warning. We're setting a course for the spoiler zone listeners, so be warned. We're glad you've decided to join us. But if you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for Nepenthe is Picard and Soji transport to the planet Nepenthe, home to some old and trusted friends. As the rest of the La Sirena crew attempt to join them, Picard helps Soji make sense of her recently unlocked memories. Meanwhile, Hugh and Elnor are left on the Borg cube and must face an angered Narissa. This episode is written by Samantha Humphrey and Michael Chabon. Chabon is, of course, a Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist and the co-creator and showrunner of Picard. Humphrey is a television writer and producer who has worked on series like CSI New York, NCIS New Orleans, and SWAT. She's a co-executive producer on Picard, and this is her first Trek script. The episode was directed by Douglas Arniakowski, who'd previously directed the Discovery episodes Lethe, The Sound of Thunder, and Through the Valley of Shadows, as well as the Star Trek Short Treks episode The Brightest Star. He's a co-executive producer on Star Trek Picard. And the in-universe date of this episode is 2399. No Well, there is actually a flashback at the beginning of this episode, I guess, to 3 weeks previously, but no big jumps there. There's a couple interesting aspects to this episode. I should mention that Nepenthe is a fictional medicine mentioned, I believe, in the Odyssey at one point. Its name means literally no sorrow or anti-sorrow, and it's given to Helen by Polydamna. And with this episode, Jonathan Frakes becomes the only Star Trek performer to appear in 5 different live-action Star Trek series. They'll squeeze him onto Discovery yet somehow.
Yeah.
And Marina Sirtis becomes the only performer to be the same character in 4 different live-action series. This episode also introduces the children of the Troy Rikers, Kestra Troy Riker and Thaddeus Troy Riker. And this is the first live-action episode to reference the Xinti, who first appeared in Star Trek in the animated series episode The Slaver Weapon, but they are a race from Larry Niven's Known Space series.
Uh-huh.
Something of a crossover there.
Yeah,
I want to see big cat people on my screen. They can't just say that and not deliver on that.
Yeah, the cat people from the Niven books are great.
Yeah. What do you guys think of the episode?
I thought it was great to see Riker and Troy again, and
I got a feeling.
Yeah,
I got a feeling when I saw Troy again.
Yeah. It was great to see them again. A little bittersweet to find out about their son and everything.
Yeah.
But I felt like Troy was really trying to reach out to Soji and, do her thing as a counselor, and Soji was having none of it. But I guess I can kind of understand that because she's been through a lot of traumatic experiences lately. So
yeah, and Troy, I think professionally, identified that. We've seen her on TNG before, not only use her empathic powers to sort of get a read on people, but also she's just got she's got the skills of a very talented counselor and psychiatrist, and so yeah, she can tell, even though she can't read this girl's mind, she can tell that she's got some problems. She needs some help.
Yeah.
Alan,
I love
what about
that
you?
too. Yeah, I love that too. That both both Riker and Troy got really featured. The previews, we saw both of them in earlier previews, and in last week's, next week on, we got Will Riker in there, and it felt like it was going to be very heavily Will Riker, and I really loved it for a lot of the episode, and before Will got his time with Picard, Troy did, and she was a real, I thought, a major player in this, and specifically in the development of the Picard character as he is now. And all season long, I haven't been on this show to talk about Picard yet, but as I've been watching the episodes all season, I keep asking my wife, who's also a Star Trek fan, and we were watching it tonight together, and I said, does it feel like Patrick Stewart is playing Picard, or that he's just Patrick Stewart giving lines? Mm-hmm. And I felt like for a early part of the season, and particularly the first couple of episodes, I did not feel like he was playing Picard. And now tonight, I feel very differently. I think I do believe he's been playing Picard, and I think that he's been playing him with vulnerability. And this is something that they talked about in the producing Picard, or the Talking Picard show with Will Wheaton. Like he's playing this character with vulnerability. And he is a wounded character when we come into the beginning of Picard. He has stuck his neck out for the Romulan refugees. He's been shut down. He's been driven out of Starfleet. He says do this or I'll resign, and they're like, great, get out of here, and he's gone. And so he's got a wounded psyche, and this respite, this moment, this healing moment is not just for Soji, and it's not just for Troy and Riker and Kestra. It's also for Picard, I think. He's there to be restored. And I started to hear Picard in him when they were at the ready room at the dinner table, right, when he's finally talking to Soji, and he's getting his strength back. He's getting his strength of resolve back. And so I see now what they've been doing with Picard all the way, the character of Picard. And I really liked that. And I'm looking forward to seeing a little bit more assertive Picard in the second half.
Yeah, they had to sort of break him down before they built him back up again.
Yeah.
There's definitely been, and it continues in this episode, a sort of a directive or drive to kind of detonate the myth of Jean-Luc Picard, be he captain or admiral, and everybody that he meets from his past has to take him down just a little peg before we can kind of bounce back. Yeah, this was like we said before. This is an episode of both warmth and thrills and chills, and it's a long episode too. It's 59 minutes long. So they're really packing it in here. And as we open, we definitely we get confirmed something we talked about on an earlier show, which was we saw a still of a mind meld between Jurati and Commodore O, which gets paid off here in her sharing this vision that motivates Dr. Jurati to do all the things that she's done. And I don't know I didn't do a freeze frame or anything, but did you guys get any sense of what was happening there? I mean, we saw planets exploding and people tearing their faces off, but I got the impression it was real bad news.
Yeah, I think it was everything is bad and horrible.
She's just having her McShaker salad, out on the lawn, and then this happens, and then up comes the salad. A lot of puking from Agnes in this episode.
Yeah.
And she swallows that blue pill really fast. I thought,
I know. I guess it looks like a mint, but she just hands her this tracker, and it's like, "Are you supposed
she's
to
like,
eat
you
that?"
have to do it,
Yeah.
and it felt very Matrix. Like, here's the blue pill, but I also, I felt like the mind meld. Like, where is this coming from? Is she from the future? Then has she seen what happens and she has come back to the past to stop it? Because where would she have those images to show her if she hasn't experienced it? I guess a Vulcan could mind meld with you and project whatever they want into your brain, I suppose. But it felt very visceral. At least we're supposed to take it that way for Jurati. And I don't know.
I think that time travel at this point would be all that we're missing from Picard. Yeah. But my sort of headcanon or my guess is that it's some kind of like cultural memory. Like perhaps this was some kind of mini apocalypse that happened, hundreds or thousands of years ago when the Romulans formed this opinion about synthetic life. And then because they can share katra or thoughts or experiences, this is kind of like a meme. It's like a mental meme that's been passed between Romulans and now to, if Commander or Commodore O is a Vulcan, to this Vulcan person as well.
And that was a big question, right, among fans. Is O a Vulcan or is she Tal Shiar posing as a Vulcan?
Right.
And unless things have changed a lot since TNG, and I'm less up on all the changes in the movies, but I guess unless she's a Riemann Romulan, she wouldn't be able to use telepathic powers. As I understand it, the Riemanns were the only ones who ended up with some telepathic powers from the Romulans, and the Romulans lost theirs originally when they split off from the Vulcans, or they rejected it.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing. Either it's a fake, and she's doing something else to her, or it seemed very like it was like a legit mind meld. So other than that, she's really a Vulcan. But as we learned in Enterprise and other shows, the Vulcans can be dicks too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. No problem. I also liked how she, when she was confronting Jurati, she was telling her that they were tracking her, and she had downloaded 300 gigabytes of data. It's like, what happened to kiloquads?
I know, right? That's not a whole lot in the future, is it?
That's a couple Blu-rays, yeah. Just give them some movies.
Yeah.
The show moves back to the artifact, and we have sort of two threads of action here as we follow the characters on La Sirenia and also the characters who are still on the cube. And as the Sirenia is being tractored by the cube and unable to escape, we see that Raffi is sort of hacking and kind of looking through, it looks like surveillance cam footage. And she sees what I'm assuming was the holding area where they had the affected Romulans before, and she sees these multiple drawings of these circles, which look similar to, again, I didn't really freeze frame this, but it looks similar to the necklace that Daj and Soji both wear, but there's like an extra circle that seems like a link of a chain. And I was wondering if you guys caught that and what you made of that.
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
I didn't catch that either. I think that's really interesting. And if it is like their necklaces, but it's like another chain? Like, does that mean there's another synth out there? Or is that like, does that represent Data somehow? Or what is the missing link?
Yeah, I'm wondering how we're going to bring Brent Spiner back into this.
Yeah.
I think Data's out there. I think that Bruce Maddox has put Data back together. I think this is where we're going. And it may be in a different body, and that may be a way to bring Data back in without having it have to be Brent Spiner all the time.
Sure.
But we're told in one of the early episodes that Maddox thought that one atom or something, one quark of something, or of Data could essentially rebuild all of them. And if he's able to build a new positronic body like he has with Soji and Daj, then he could have put Data into anybody. And I wonder if Data's effectively out there creating new synths somewhere. And I feel like that's where we're going, that we're going to find Data again.
That would be pretty crazy if that's what it was. We see on the cube that the Romulans, led by what's her name? What's girl?
Larissa.
Rizzo, like from the T-Bird, from
the Pink Ladies, yeah, yeah. And I really don't understand like her role at this point. I mean, clearly she's Zhat Vash, but she also seems to hold some position with the Romulans as well. But they are just shooting down the Borg, trying to get the information out of Hugh about where Picard has gone to. And, of course, he won't give them up. And so it looks bad for them. We see Narek jump in a shuttle or a craft to try to follow Serenia in a real Death Star escape stratagem here. You know, let them think that they've gotten away, and then we're going to track them back to wherever they're going. And Rizzo makes the... There were
a couple of Star Wars references, or at least allusions to that. When she says, like, I know I should be the one to say we can go hide out from, in a crater and a meteor and it's a monster, like that was a fire reference. And I felt like it was done while they were caught in a tractor beam and while they're waiting for Boba Fett to follow them. I mean, like I felt like there was a little wink and a nod, like we're borrowing a little bit from Star Wars here, let's just go with it.
Definitely, yeah. And when the Serenia takes off later, Narek follows them off to wherever they're headed. To maybe Nepenthe's Cloud City. Maybe that's what it is. Right.
The freak out was Cloud City.
Yeah. They get to Nepenthe, and as Mika had pointed out to me off air, that trajector has a real good resolution there because they drop them right on the Troy Riker property, which is amazing.
Right. I know. It's like they didn't have to travel that far at all. It must be a very small planet.
Yeah. There's just one in, one out. They have space bunnies or bunny corns, I think they're called. Yep, and we meet Kestra, the daughter of Riker and Troy, named, of course, after Troy's sister, who passed away when she was younger, who is an interesting character. We meet her. She's LARPing, basically, right? This is Lord of the Rings LARPing.
Well, her brother made up that language. I can't remember what they called it now. Like, he made up like 12, I guess. Yeah. And she was... what did they said, like a daughter of the forest or the woods?
Child of the forest or something.
Women of the wild or something like that.
Yeah.
And Picard, as he's talking to her, basically just he doesn't. She says the quiet part out loud, is I guess what I'm trying to say. She's basically like, "Oh, you're an android." Yeah. And if you didn't know by now, Soji, now you know what the situation is there. I still don't know. We finally find out in this episode that she didn't know about Daj. I don't know how she didn't know about Daj.
Or why she hasn't gotten the message to trust Picard when all of it goes sideways. Because Daj did. When Daj does her call, when things go bad and she calls Mom, they're like, go find Picard. Or she gets that word. So why didn't that activate in Soji as well? Is weird.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah. That is a good question. Another good question is, so the Rikers are having bunny corn sausage, and maybe this is part of this kind of rustic anti-technology life they seem to be living, but I thought that Riker was a vegan or something like that. I guess we don't ever get details, but we hear in one TNG episode he talks about how we don't kill and eat animals anymore.
Oh, wow. I'd forgotten.
But then nobody
that.
mentions pizza either, so maybe things have
Yeah.
completely changed by this point.
It's okay as a topping, but not as the main course, maybe. So Thaddeus is another reference. Did you guys? And Memory Alpha is already all over this. Like, it's a reference to. It's a deep cut to Voyager, where a Q episode with the one with the Civil War, where a Q saves Thaddeus Riker in the Civil War, so that William T. Riker can eventually be around to stop the Borg. That was I was expecting. I was like, that's not his dad's name, is it? Like, I kept trying to remember his dad's name, and but no, that was a really interesting choice there. That they named him after some long dead ancestor of Riker.
Yes, it's a interesting and strong choice too to put tragedy in the Troy family again. I mean, we could have just easily had 2 precocious kids running around. Instead, we have 1, and it's not a bad choice. I wonder why they wanted to make that choice specifically.
I think it was totally it was a writerly reason, and that's one of the reasons I don't like it as much. It felt entirely there because he died because synth research stopped, and it was kind of It was like my kid died because stem cell research is illegal, and
right.
and that's why we need you guys. So it's not all bad to be a synth, and that's Troy's ultimate message when she's giving her counseling session to Soji, and I was like, okay, I get it. It's a bit heavy-handed though. Like, I felt like their personal tragedy had been written into the show expressly to help this one android move along. Otherwise, I mean, it's a good reason why they might be off isolated somewhere rather than like in the heart of Beta Z or in Alaska or something. Instead of near their people, maybe why they would have separated themselves so they wouldn't have the memories, and also so they could be on this planet with its recovery properties.
Yeah, and it also gives, just from a plotting perspective, it gives Picard more excuse to not immediately go to Riker, a guy who's on active reserve or whatever for Starfleet. They're kind of out of the game at this point.
And I think
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that Thad's death too, gave something for Kestra to try to relate to Soji about,
the mucus wasn't enough.
No, you've had tragedy and trauma in your life, and so have I. I lost somebody that I loved, and that sort of thing. I thought it was kind of there for that too.
And I thought that the actress, the young woman who played Kestra, was great. Star Trek has a long tradition of putting kids in shows and not always successfully. I thought she was great, and I thought the writing for her was really great because I felt like she was written like a real kid. Like, do you have mucus? Do you all she basically didn't ask her if she went to the bathroom. It's questions that a real kid would ask, and I thought it was a nice way to put a little bit of levity in there, and for her to ask those questions of Soji, and when Soji's questioning if she's real, and who or what she is, I thought it was a really clever device in that regard to have her peppering her with questions.
Yeah. Can you lift a car? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like Sherlock Holmes? I love the Data references. Do you like Sherlock Holmes? Stuff. And it's like, oh, well, Data did. If you're his daughter, you'd probably like it too. Yeah. I thought those were nice.
Back on the Serena, we've got Rios trying to shake Narek off, and of course they don't know what the problem is, but we are starting to get a problem, or an idea of what the problem is. And Agnes, of course, is still being affected by what's happened so far, and I'm presuming not wanting to confront Soji because it should be something that she really wants to confront, but because she is going to have to once again, do what O has ordered, and presumably to try to destroy her.
Yeah, I find Dr. Girardi to be after. Was it just last episode where she killed Bruce Maddox, or was it the one before? Yeah,
it was the one before. Yeah,
one before. So ever since then, I've had a real hard time accepting this character as anything but a villain, and look, I don't know what the stuff that she chewed up and swallowed is probably going to be nanites, and it's obviously what they're using to track her. But did it do something else? Is it something controlling her? Is she seems to be completely on board from the early scene in this episode with doing what needs to be done. I mean, not happy about it, but on board with it. And
people were ripping their faces off.
Right, I know, but still, it's a quick turnaround to just believe it. I mean,
yeah.
And I, after killing Maddox and then like still being a part of this crew and knowing that she's putting all these people in danger, we saw some clips in the previews for next week where there's some confrontation with her, but it's going to be really hard, don't you think, to redeem this character and to fold her back into the crew, or is this a character that was always going to be the mole, the poison pill, and not be a part of this crew? It feels like she is.
Well, she definitely didn't get interesting for me until she did what she did. But yeah, I think maybe redemption is coming, but I don't think any length of stay will, redemption through her death or, that kind of thing where you just fit, you zero out a character's account and then that character's going to be gone.
Yeah. I don't know. I wonder how they're going to play this. And was she committing suicide in this one, or was she trying to remove the stuff and it went bad? I don't know what's going on with that.
Unclear. Yeah. Mika, what do you think?
It could have gone either way.
When she got that thing out of the 21st century 3D printer that they put in for some reason?
I know. I mean, it seemed like she was trying to commit suicide, but I don't know. Like you mentioned before, Alan, like she swallowed that pill, or what, the tracking device.
Yeah.
Super, she didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
And
she threw up. Maybe she thought it was a breath mint.
Right. But I just find it interesting. Like, she was so determined and she was so sure of herself when she came and she found Picard on his vineyard and she shot somebody, and then they got Maddox, and then she didn't flinch at all when she killed him. Yeah. And then just this episode, she's like, "Oh, I'm feeling bad about this. Oh, I'm feeling sick. Oh, I don't want to kill a synth." But she didn't feel bad about killing Maddox, somebody who she was romantically involved with.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. I think it's a weird... I think the writing for her has been strange, and I get is in that early episode when she's with Commander O and the scene is cut off and we don't see her again until she shows up with Picard. It's immediately suspicious. It's like, oh, okay, well, she didn't show up to warn Picard. Like, she got, but the way that it would have been more redeemable is if they had something on her, if they were holding something over her, a family member that they were going to hurt or something like that, and even this could be walked back if they lied to her and showed her something that was, if the visions were so overwhelming and so powerful that she couldn't imagine, that they became real to her. But it's going to be so hard for her to explain that to the other characters and for me to accept them buying that.
Yeah. And no matter how extreme and face tearing what the thing that she saw was, I'm always surprised by, especially in this, later iteration of Trek on All Access, the characters of the world they want to act individually and not take anything to the public or take it to higher authorities. Like, when we think about the world of Star Trek, I think of a very benign, totalitarian sort of society, like the kind of thing where there is like a government that controls everything, but you can trust them. That's a fiction, and so why not just bring this to the news? I know she's being approached by somebody from Starfleet, which is one of these arms of the government, but immediately she's like, who do I got to kill to stop this from happening? Yeah.
Yeah. And Riker even isn't it Riker who counsels Picard, maybe you need to take this to Starfleet? And it's and I felt like Picard could say, I tried, dude. I went there. They shut me down. They used profanity in a Star Trek show to get rid of me.
It's like garlic to a vampire. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so.
There's other admirals besides the lady from Vulcan Love Slave or whatever the band is. But maybe not. Who knows? We know that the press is is a problematic because, of course, the show opens with the press being that way. So maybe they're doing their homework here. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. And Picard, they've shown that he and Raffi are both viewed as outsiders on this. That everybody else feels like we really got hit hard by the synths, and they are the enemy, and we're okay with this synth ban. Yeah. And so it'd be a hard sell for him, I guess, going public with it. That makes some sense.
Yeah. Back on Nepenthe, we're making pizza, we're eating it. They're all sitting down at the dinner table, and as they sat down at the dinner table to sort of talk this over, I immediately thought, oh, this is like Logan. This is very similar to Logan. It's even got Picard in a similar role as Professor X. He is a guy past his prime. He finds a young, promising girl who has been experimented on and lacks, a family or structure, and he's trying to shepherd her to safety. Only he's kind of Professor X and Logan in this case.
Yeah, and she's way better. I mean, so she like the new X-23 or whatever the girl's called, and she's also pretty good at handling herself. She doesn't really need Picard's help. Except that she's now emotionally wounded, and that's the interesting thing there is that he can help her. Well, she can obviously defend both of them pretty well, but he can help her maybe find who she is along the way.
Yeah, and Troy does make that point, as you mentioned, that she really needs that. We head back to the cube, and Elnor and Hugh are heading to the Queen cell to do something or other. Hugh mentions that he wants to take the artifact away from everyone.
Right.
And then they get in a fight with Rizzo. And it's a kung fu fight, because that's how the Qowat Milat and the Zhat Vash have to get down. Yeah. Of course, in the midst of all this, we lose another character. Man, who else can they bring back and kill off?
Another one bites the dust.
Yeah. I'm starting to worry for Wrecker and Troy now.
I was really bummed by that. I'm just like, come on, And it's like, it's so quick and fast. It's like, oh, I'm going to throw a poisoned knife into your neck, and then you're going to die.
Yeah. When Hugh was spared, so I was watching this with my daughter as well, and she's a teenager and very savvy about this stuff. And I'm like, did they just earlier on when all the Romulans were shooting the Borg and trying to get information, and we see she's like, kill them all, and we cut away, and I'm like, did they just kill Hugh? And my daughter's like, did we see him die? No, like he's not dead. It was off screen. He'll die on screen. They're going like, okay, I've trained you well, Grasshopper, So I felt I was like, maybe they'll let Hugh live, and then no, they killed Hugh as well.
Yeah,
I felt a little bit like a Mandalorian moment, without spoiling that show for people who are not listening to Mandalorian. But I where I just, there was a character I'm like, oh no, not that one. Like, I mean, like some of the other characters that they've brought back and killed quickly, it's like, okay, I get it. Bye, Echep. But like with this one, I thought that I thought the actor did a great job with that role, and I really thought that was a great holdover from TNG. Like when they brought Hugh on, and we were like, oh my god, that's like actually the dude who played Hugh playing Hugh. I mean, it was a really nice like connection to TNG that was a payoff for people who are real serious fans. Yeah, and hated to lose him.
Yeah, and his reunion with Picard last week was really great, super warm, and I think that the fact that he's in charge of the reclamation project is pretty cool, and he obviously cares about the XBs and their welfare and everything. So I was really bummed to lose him too. I just was like, why? And then go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, like what you're saying about last week with Hugh and Picard together, it was also, Picard, the character has taken a lot of grief this whole series about the mistakes that he's made and the people he's let down. The Romulans ended up getting let down, and he let down Elnor when he didn't come back, and there's all these people that he wanted to help, that he was trying to play savior to, and he couldn't fix everything. And it was really nice to have Hugh be like, dude, you saved us, that. Remember that thing you did where you didn't kill all of us, didn't program us with a virus? Like, we're here because of you. And that was a nice redemptive moment for Picard as well, after taking a lot of grief this season.
I also thought that it was maybe there's building up for that to be kind of his Icheb in a way, because we know that Seven experiences this loss and this grief over this character, and Picard is empathetic, but he didn't know Icheb, and now this is kind of a similar situation where maybe the death of Hugh is like just one straw too many, as far as him finally fighting back.
Where now he'll go against his own advice to Seven of Nine and go after
Maybe we
some.
need a little vengeance. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I can see that. I also was like, why Elnor is supposed to be so much of a an assassin, a samurai, or what have you? Like, why did he let that knife go by?
Well,
I know
he was busy.
It seems like, though, if he's really in the business of defense, like it seems like he would never have let. And this is me nitpicking, and I'm with you, Mikan. I mean, it's like why? Like if I was there to protect Hugh, if I had stayed behind specifically to help protect this guy, I'm not getting into a mano-a-mano fight with a Tal Shiar agent. Like, forget that stuff. Like, just kill her and get on with it, or take Hugh and run away. Like whichever one is going to protect your charge.
Well, I think it just shows that he's human, or a Romulan, that she kind of drew him out. She's sort of like, show me your Wu-Tang style, and so maybe he got a little focused on that instead. But
they could have had a rap battle. That would have been really great.
There you go, yeah. Although he was clear-eyed enough to see the Fenris chip that Seven had given Picard. Now, did I miss something? Why was it just hanging there?
I don't know. And
okay.
it took me and my family a second. We're like, why is that there?
Yeah.
And okay, sure.
Unless, I don't know.
Maybe Picard left it for him, but I never saw that happen.
I didn't either. So
I don't remember that either.
I guess people will let us know if there's something that we're missing.
Yeah.
The last part of the storyline on La Sirena is that they, at this point, know that they're being tracked somehow, and we've got Rios pulls Raffi aside. Well, first of all, you have Raffi talking with Agnes, and I don't like it when characters are like too smart, or when they are like gotcha. They always have the right information. But I kind of thought that Raffi might have figured this out. Like we've seen, they've proven to me that Raffi is very smart and very capable, and an intelligence officer. And I thought maybe she might have had some hint of this, but instead we kind of double down on the dramatic irony, because then Rios takes Agnes aside and is like, I think they bugged Raffi. And so now we've got, I wish our characters were smarter. Now we've got two characters who both are losing the plot here. They are not on the right track.
Also, Raffi is a conspiracy nut. And so, like, why wasn't it? Like, it would be really interesting if she's, like, pulling Rios aside and she's like, dude, that girl, she's the mole. Like, she's the reason that we're being followed. And Rios is like, dude, I slept with her last week. It can't be her.
Yeah,
and
right.
So like it would have been nice if Raffi had seen through that because of her conspiracy, like seeing conspiracies everywhere. That would have been really nice. And in fact, I thought when Rios talked with Jurati, like when he went down to say, like, I think Raffi's the reason they're following us, they're tracking her, I really thought he knew that it was Jurati, and he's trying to gently push her into doing something about, like, to admitting it.
Okay.
And I thought, this is clever. And then he goes up top and he's like, clearly thinks that Raffi really is the mole, because he's like, I might have to put you out the space line.
Can you fit in a torpedo tube? Yeah.
So I was disappointed too. I thought that either one of those characters should have been smart enough to see this coming. And does the EMH not file any kind of report? Like, I mean, like,
I guess not.
Like, it seems to me if the EMH had been present at both of Dr. Jurati's, like, breakdown moments where she keeps dismissing the EMH or the emergency psych, hologram or whatever.
Right.
Like, it seems to me that if it's my ship and they're all made in my image, they're filing reports with me every day. But
I suppose, yeah. Maybe there's a threshold of activation, because it's made clear when we meet Rios that he's a rough and tumble guy and he doesn't want to be babied by the computer. So maybe he's got it set to like only life-threatening stuff.
Unless you don't put in an insurance claim, it doesn't trigger.
Yeah, right.
Well, I thought it was.
Oh, go ahead. No, you.
Oh, I just thought it was interesting, like when Agnes threw up the second time in the episode, and Rafi was like, "We're having a hospitality emergency here," and like none of the holograms showed up.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, did Jurati turn them all off?
Right.
But then he shows up when she's like practically killed herself. So I don't know.
I was with you. That was my immediate thought. I totally agree with you. When she was like, where's the emergency hospitality? And I'm like, seriously, where is the EMH when she's barfing? And like, I thought the same thing, that somehow after twice being bothered by it and being realized she's going to be outed, the telltale heart or whatever, then she, she ends up deactivating it in some way, but then it does show up. So I don't know where that went, unless she was really not physically sick, but just really making herself sick, and that's why the EMH didn't activate. If that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of. I did like how when he did finally show up, he's like, "Please state the nature." Oh my God!
Yeah, very different than our doctor from Voyager.
That is an emergency. Yeah. And the episode pretty much wraps up with Picard and gang deciding to head out because Kestra has called this, frankly, creepy Captain Crunch character who I'm not sure she should be talking to.
Which is really weird, yeah.
Yeah, but they find out where the planet with the 2 moons are, and they're heading off there.
Yeah, I kept Googling, like, who is Captain Crandall? Like, trying to figure out if this was a reference to something.
I see, yeah.
And I don't think it's anything but a plot device to help move them forward, I guess. Because there was a lot of discussion about whether he could be trusted to take them off planet. And I'm like, why are we talking about this guy if we're never going to see him?
Yeah.
So,
well, and then, like, why is a teenage girl texting him? I just... So many questions.
Very strange. Yeah, so maybe we're going to see Captain Crandall. Maybe it's the outrageous Okuna who's been living next door to him the whole time.
Oh, my God.
You like that. I knew you'd like that.
That just means he's going to die, though. Well, I don't want Bill Campbell to die.
He's the next cameo to die, right? So, no, I kept trying to figure out who that was, and I don't know. Maybe it is somebody who's been keeping an eye on. Well, now listen to me. I'm like writing this out. But, like, what if it's some character from our past who's really been pretending to be somebody else so he could keep an eye on Will and Deanna and make sure they're safe, and now he's going to follow Picard. Now I'm just writing some crap. It's nothing.
Well, it's
all headcanon.
There's certainly no hints in the peek at what we see of next week, where we see that 7 of 9 does return, and we see more ripping faces off, and it looks like it's things are coming to a head here near the end of the 10-episode run. Yeah,
if I called that and Captain Crandall turns out to be somebody from the past or like important, I got to win a prize or something, because that is like one of those just way out there headcanon moments.
Marvel used to have no prizes, where basically the prize is no prize, but you get the recognition. So
I will take a no prize.
We'll give you a no prize for that. Yeah. It was a very long episode, and I enjoyed it a lot. I did think that there was a lot of retreading of ground that I am not sure why we were doing it. It's not like you really need to catch new viewers up because they can just go back and watch the old episodes. So I thought it could have standed to be a little bit shorter. But otherwise, fun and enjoyable. And I was questioning about why it's so long. I think these days, it used to be in the old days, shooting on location was expensive and a pain. And nowadays, it's probably cheaper to shoot on a cabin in Big Bear than to create a whole space battle inside of a computer. That probably costs about 10 times as much as just shooting around a cabin. So maybe this is they just took that opportunity to go, let's spend some time with Picard and the Troy Rikers and just kind of chill out here for a while.
Yeah. Didn't it feel a bit like Captain Kirk's retirement home in the movie, where he's like in the
excuse me. Yeah, down to the cooking and everything else.
Yeah. That felt like like an illusion. They also kept showing the rock formation in the background, and I didn't know if it's just because they got a nice artist and spent some money to do that, and they wanted to keep showing it off. But I also wondered, like, as soon as they said the planet has restorative powers, I immediately thought of Star Trek Insurrection, right? Isn't that this is my least favorite movie, and I think it's one of the worst things that they've ever done in all of Trek. But, so I've seen it once. But isn't the premise of that there's a planet that keeps people? I guess it makes you immortal, or it keeps makes you better. I feel like I was actually kind of wondering, like, is this that planet? But I don't think it's supposed to be. I think it's disconnected. But I wondered if I don't know. I wondered when they kept showing that exterior shot of that arched rock, if that was supposed to be a reference to something from something else we'd seen. But that may just be me conspiracy nutting it.
Well, the Baku's planet had rings in space, around the planet. This planet has ring mountains, so I don't know if that's a thing.
And this one, when they do pan up, it has like 3 moons. They don't. They didn't show ring. They had an opportunity to show us rings, and they didn't. So,
although when you said arch, I immediately thought of Arch, like in the holodeck. So.
Oh yeah, or that's interesting. Or the arch of the Guardian of Forever, right?
Boy.
That's a. I mean, but it's not any of those things. It was just an interesting prop that they made for the background.
Soji Asha must die. Yes. Wow, we're getting more tinfoil hat than Raffi at this point.
I know.
I need my snake juice.
Yeah. I want to say, before we wrap it up, there was something that I really liked that was toward the end of the episode, and that was the scene with Will Riker and Jean-Luc Picard out on the lake. And look, this was a very fan service episode, and it gave me all the feels, and I cried a couple of times just because I love seeing my old favorite characters back together and hugging each other, like when Troy hugs Picard, and I was just like, oh god, yeah, this is great. But both that moment and the moment on the lake are where I'm going for, is that the last episode of TNG, in the last scene when Picard comes in and asks if he can join the poker game.
Yeah,
that was a moment where Picard, the character, says, "I've been a little bit aloof. More than a little bit. I've been aloof. I've been distant. I've never joined in on this family. We're a family, and I've never taken part in that. I've kept my distance as a captain." And it seems like in this last episode, he is going to make changes in his life. Then we have a bunch of movies where we don't see any of those changes because there's no time for that. Right. But in this episode, I feel like we're seeing the effects of decades after that decision. He has friends. He doesn't come back to Riker and Troy because of what they can do for him. Like, yes, they're offering him refuge, but he's not asking Troy to read somebody. He's not asking Riker to get him a ship or to be his number one again. He's coming back because they're friends. They're a safe harbor. And I like when Riker is out on the lake and puts his arm around him and like hugs him. That is something that we would never have seen Riker do in TNG ever. Like that familiarity with Picard, that they are of course captain and first officer in the past, but now they're really friends, and right. They always were, but they had to keep that distance before. And I thought that hug was, I don't know, I felt like it was a payoff for that last scene in the last episode of TNG. And that really shows progress and development in this Picard character.
I agree. I like, too, that he was messing with him a little. Like, we know that Riker is a guy that likes to break people's balls, but he's also he's a consummate officer, and so he can never do that. He can never go up the chain with that. But now that they're more equals, he's kind of like, okay, Jean-Luc, what do you got going on here? Yeah, it was a nice moment.
Yeah, I thought the writing for both of those characters was great. And, Michael Chabon has said that he is a fan of Star Trek. And, he was a co-writer on this episode and, of course, a producer on the show, like a lead producer on this. And I think that we're seeing a real love for what's come before, and yet at the same time understanding that the show can't be putting the old crew together and running another mission. We've seen that in the movies from the old series and from the original series. And, like, this has to be a new show. And I do like all the new characters. But we also are not going to forget where we came from, and I really like that.
Mika, do you have any final thoughts?
I really enjoyed the episode. I like to see Troy and Riker again, and I I thought that Soji, like, she seemed to kind of trust them a little bit in the end, and I think that they're trying to show that she is really putting her trust in Picard in a way that she she feels like there's nobody else that she can trust, but here she is with this family, and they're trying to help her as well.
Yeah, I hope that we get to see. I hope that she doesn't just disappear once this first season completes, because she's somebody who's just been tossed around and taken from perilous circumstance to perilous circumstance, and she's just kind of a waif in all of this. And I hope that we get to see a more like centered Soji, who kind of knows what she is. She's comfortable with, her nature, and she's able to put that to work. I mean, Alan was talking about maybe somebody else being Data, but maybe she could be, our new Data.
Yeah, with not being the same character, but effectively that role in a show. She is their android, who has the superpowers and everything. Absolutely. Like I still think we're going to find Data, but Data's got he's not going to be running around with Picard solving small problems. He's like helping run or create a planet full of sense is my little projection. And if he really is out there, then it might be like, go Soji, my daughter, and help out this old man that I love, and have adventures together. And she does become the Data of this group.
He's teaching them all to sing Gilbert and Sullivan.
Yes, and do Shakespeare.
Right.
And play instruments.
Yeah, whole orchestra.
And take care of cats. They all have cats.
The crazy cat planet.
It's a planet full of synths and cats.
You can find it by smell.
Well, that's one group of people that they will get along with. And
well, that's it for our show this week. Thanks for joining us, listeners. If you like what you hear, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPOD for updates and to get notified when new episodes of both Enterprising Individuals and Discoverage are released. And you can tweet to us on the show by using the hashtag Discoverage or email us at eistpod@gmail.com. Also, while you're on the internet, why not head to your listening platform of choice and subscribe to our show feed. Give us a rating and a review, because it really helps us out. And if you want to help the show grow, you can stop by our Patreon page at patreon.com/EISTpod. And as always, if you like the show, tell a friend. And I will mention one more time, because every time I mention it, I get another response. We are trying to put together a Star Trek Adventures RPG group to play at least an introductory adventure and possibly a longer campaign. And I've got a couple respondents here. If you're interested, you can contact the show on our social networks or by contacting us at eistpod@gmail.com. Send us a line. We'll play on Discord, or there's different solutions to play on the internet. But let me know. I'd like to play a little Star Trek Adventures RPG. Discoverage will return on March 12th for the 8th episode of Star Trek Picard, entitled Broken Pieces. That episode will be directed by Maya Vervillo, who also directed The Impossible Box. We'll be going live once again at 7 p.m. Central or thereabouts, so join us then. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook at EISTpod to get notified when we're live and broadcasting. And in the meantime, why not check out our main show, Enterprising Individuals, at enterprisingindividuals.com. Every Wednesday on the show, I'm joined by a special guest to discuss in excruciating detail a selected episode from a Star Trek series. We also have news from the Trek sphere and interviews with special guests. And our latest episode dropped yesterday. On that episode, I'm joined by author William Leisner to talk about the original series episode, Spock's Brain, the original worst episode ever until Threshold came along.
Yeah.
You can check that out at enterprisingindividuals.com or on your listening platform of choice. Mika, thanks as always for filling in with me today while Ella's out. Where can people find you and Just Enough Trope online?
Yeah, I'm at justenoughtrope.com and Just Enough Trope on Twitter and Facebook, and Mikan Hana on Twitter.
And what's coming up on Just Enough Trope besides not going to Emerald City Comic Con?
Yeah, well, we are reading the 12-issue Justice, written by Jim Kruger and Alex Ross, illustrated by Doug Braithwaite and Alex Ross, in which the Justice League is prophesized to destroy the world and the villains will save it.
Ooh,
Dun,
that
dun.
sounds familiar. Any androids in that one? Red Tornado, maybe, I guess.
Red Tornado.
Yeah, there you go.
And Alan, it's always great to have you on the show. Where can people find you online?
Sure, I'm at alangratz.com. That's ALANGRATZ. That's where you can also find me on Twitter at Alan Gratz and on Facebook at Alan Gratz. And I'm now on the gram, as the kids say.
Yeah.
And that is alan.gratz. So look for me there.
All right. And I know you're working on a new novel. Any idea when we'll see that?
Yeah, the projected publication date, if everything goes well, is about this time or a little earlier, February of next year. So it's a little ways off, but that book is about 9/11. And next year is the 20-year anniversary of 9/11, and that's why that book will come out in 2021.
All right. Well, keep an eye out for that, everyone. And that is it for us for this week. Thanks for listening. And we're signing off. This is Aaron for Mika and Alan saying live long and prosper.